I'm hoping that at the end of this video that you will say that Randy was slightly more confident in his understanding of the future than the chairman seemed today. Now, maybe I could be confident and completely wrong, and he might be lacking in confidence and turn out to be, well, he can't be right. He can't be wrong because he really said not very much that was helpful. And that seems to be how the reporters in the room took it as well. I went into it before before he even began to speak. The market was up. After the higher inflation was okay going into the end of the year, higher interest rates continuing to the end of the year, the market went up anyway. That might mean that the market assumes business will be better than expected in the second half than they thought yesterday. And so the market was doing fine. And then the Chair Powell spoke, and while he was speaking, the market was still doing well. Everything was okay. But when he got done, the market kind of collapsed for a minute. We'll take a look in a second and see if that's still true. Didn't collapse a ton, but pretty much everything went down. The Dow went down hard, and the NASDAQ went down. Everything went down after he got done speaking. And I think that's because he seemed to be saying that we're going to have, I hate to overuse this word, but a meh economy going forward, in his opinion. A meh economy is better than a recession, I suppose, although sometimes you just like to kind of clean out the infection, get the blood flowing, and let's go, okay? And that seemed to be a little bit of what I was hearing from the room as the reporters spoke. At least one reporter was pretty specific about it. He says, do you think that we should have just raised the rates? So he didn't say it this way. I'm going to paraphrase. Do you think we should have gone even tighter, even tougher, and wiped out this inflation, got it down to 2%, or even under 2% for a minute, rather than just continue along for another 2 years at inflation rates that are well above 2%? So in other words, the pain, I was trying to think of a good analogy here. It's kind of like, okay, I've got this pain in my arm. I do actually. I have a little arthritis here in my left arm. I got this pain in my arm. And, we could either give you something today that's going to hurt a lot to get rid of it. We're going to give you something really, this is not going to be good. It's going to hurt you for a day. In fact, it might even hurt you for a week or a month. But when we're done, the pain's going to be completely gone. You don't have to think about it anymore. Or we can give you some pain for the next 2 years. And maybe at the end of the 2 years, the pain will be gone. But over that 2-year period, you're still going to be experiencing the pain. It might get less. Well, that seemed to be what he was offering. I feel like that's why the market was not particularly happy when he got done. The smart folks in the room kept re-asking a question that seemed to me to be obvious. And this kind of everything is okay, let's leave these interest rates at these levels until something changes seems odd. And then the idea that there would be a reduction in the rates at the end of the year, even if we're still sitting at 2.8% inflation rates, even if we're still sitting at 4.0 or higher unemployment, even if we're still sitting at an economy that is, around 2% or maybe less, that just seemed really odd because it's like, oh, we're going to continue to do this kind of awful thing, which is hurting. Okay, how can I say this again? Nobody above $100,000 a year. Well, not nobody. For the most part, people that make more than $100,000 a year right now are not hurting. The inflation, you're not happy. You go to the store and it's way higher. I don't care if you're a multimillionaire, you still think, oh my gosh, what's with these prices? But the folks that are feeling it every time they go to get more gas, right now gas prices are down, but they're not down that great. They're about what they were this time last year. Every time people go to buy their food or go out to get something at a fast food or a restaurant, every time they turn around and get their next insurance policy, or they go out to rent a new unit or try to buy a house, or anything that they do that requires that they pay interest, they're going, this is crazy. I can't afford this. I don't have it in the budget, and I'm running out of money. And so he's saying, let's we're okay if it stays around 3%. When the target is 2, but we're okay if it stays at 3. That's what it really sounded like. And that he doesn't know. He just doesn't know. He just seemed really, really confused. I think everybody was expecting him this time to be more forceful and more have really kind of have it under control. And this time, as I've watched him over all these meetings, I felt like he was less certain of himself. All right. So we have economic activity expanding at a solid pace, according to him, expecting 2.1% GDP this year. A 2% increase in the GDP is solid, but not great. It's underperforming. And I don't think there's a chance in the world that we're going to end up at 2.1. That's just me. But I think if we are in the second quarter, we were at 1.3. I'm sorry, the first quarter, we were 1.3. I think the second quarter is not going to be any better. I don't think there's any reason to believe it's going to be better. And so I don't think we're going to end up the year at 2.1. I just don't see how that's going to happen. 4% unemployment by the end of the year, and then 4.2% at the end of next year. So it's just going to stay at around 4% and get worse. Well, yeah, 4% unemployment is great historically. We all agree it's a really, really good number. But is 4.2 a great number? And if you're wrong by 1% or 2% or 3% at 4.5, is that good? Is that just, it's just going to keep getting a little bit worse on the unemployment. As long as we stay along that path, that's a good path. Or would it be better to go back down to 3.5? The economy gets a little, you get a little bit of stretch. People are able to ask for wage increases more, but isn't that kind of the idea, is to get as many people working as possible? Okay, and then inflation coming down slowly. I've talked about that a lot already. The consumer is going to run out of money. They're already really out of money. Yes, we saw some good news with regard to credit cards. People are not spending as much on their credit cards as they might be. They seem to be cutting back a little bit now. As he pointed out, it's not crazy yet in terms of people spending and or whether they're behind on their payments or not. It's not crazy, but it's not good. And it's not good in terms of the saving rate, which has dropped to almost nothing. The saving rate has dropped out of sight down to nothing. So we have people that have spent all the money from the COVID. They're not saving. They're putting more money on their credit cards, and they're running out of the ability to spend. And again, who are we talking about? The people that are making $100 or $100,000 or less as a family income. So they're going to run out of money. And he says, well, but businesses are picking up. This is what he said. That was his answer. He says, well, businesses are picking up spending, but businesses represent 15% of spending and consumers represent 70%. So businesses would have to pick up an awful lot to make up for the consumer saying, I'm done. I'm out of here. He says, and then my question becomes, I've stated, and I know, I could be completely wrong on this, but I study this a lot, and I know they study it a lot. And somebody raised the question of lagging layoffs. This is a lagging indicator. A lot of times you don't actually see the unemployment numbers go down until the recession is into it. And so what I've been saying for a year is that we should have seen productivity gains because big corporations, middle-sized companies should have been laying off those people they don't need. Well, they haven't done that yet. Okay, they are still not convinced they can rehire these people if they need to. This has been obvious because the layoff numbers have stayed like at 220,000, forever. And so they're still hanging on to these people that they don't really need. Profits are okay, business is okay, sales are okay, everything's okay. Yeah, but they haven't laid those people off yet. So productivity has not improved as much as I expected it to. Now, these people should be getting better at their job theoretically, but what if they're not? And then we're expecting the AI to start impacting productivity. But we've now heard from some of the leaders in the AI space, a lot of those leaders saying, it's going to take a minute. It's not going to happen right now. It's going to probably be next year or a year out, year or so out from here before we're going to start to see those big productivity improvements, because right now, all of the money is going into the infrastructure, the apps and the applications and the use cases. Those are going to come later, like, for instance, with full self-driving and with Optimus. What about a recession was the next question. Is there ever going to be a recession? Well, that question wasn't actually asked, was it? What about a recession? Are we ever going to have a recession? Maybe we're not. again, I've said it and I'll say it again, just for those who are watching for the first time or that missed what I've said in the past about this. We have a very big get in the third and fourth quarter in order to continue to be actually positive on GDP year over year. He talked about year over year comparisons. Well, he didn't talk about that one. We have a very large increase. I think it was over 3% in the third quarter last year. And so how do we get up above that one in the third quarter this time? And then the fourth quarter was an improvement over that. So that could be, again, I would call it a technical recession. If jobs are still at 4%, I'll agree. If if unemployment is at 4% and if inflation's at 3%, and if the GDP goes negative and we still have those numbers, it's a technical recession. I'm not sure that anybody would call that any differently. We'll see what happens. All right, what about the impact on the markets? Let's talk about first, before I go there, the impact on Tesla. What did any of this and all of this mean for Tesla? Well, I think it would mean that putting what I've said, I said it about 3 weeks ago, a bunch of people have said it maybe before and after me, is that if you're in Tesla because you're hoping that the car volumes are going to all of a sudden dramatically pick up in the second half of this year and then go in and start up on a 50% year over year again in 2025, nothing from this meeting would make me believe that. What I would believe is that Tesla will, in fact, get better and better at selling cars, and they will do way better in 2025 than they did in 2024 in terms of increasing the car sales. I think that their margins will improve dramatically this year and even more so in 2025, even given this scenario that the Fed just laid out. But I think that it's not a car business anymore. It's going to be all about robotaxi. And I'll refer you back to the Cathie Wood, the ARK Invest report today, and in terms of her expectations for what robotaxi is going to do, and then my expectations and a lot of people's expectations on what Optimus is going to do. That's the future of Tesla, and that future is not changed in the slightest on anything that came out of the Fed meeting. Okay, let's take a look at if markets continued to crush, to go down, to be unhappy, to be upset. No, so they've flattened out. We had the Dow again dropping a lot. I think it was up like 300 points at one point, down 69 right now. NASDAQ has dropped but is now going flat along at around 247 positive for the day. Tesla, which had been up and over 180 at one point, is now sitting at 177.63, but still up 7 for the day. NVIDIA ends up $3.85, but remember, that's like $38. Apple continued up again today, $6.92, now the most valuable company in the world again, passing both Microsoft and NVIDIA. So how about that? All right, I will be back later, possibly with Jeff Lutz. He is traveling and he's not 100% sure where he's going to be at a time that would be wise for us to do our afternoon or evening show, or what do you want to call it, the Good News Wednesday show. But I'm hoping to track him down. If I don't track him down, I might see if I can find another co-host. We'll see what happens on that. But until then, it's been great talking to you.